Now, as a matter of fact, guys, I happen to believe that INFJs are not really that much susceptible to influence. And yet they can really appear to be, which can be even more confusing to other people. Because often people who appear to be susceptible to influence are susceptible to influence. But when someone is not susceptible to influence, even though they appear to be susceptible to influence, that can confuse people who maybe thought of them less for looking like they're susceptible to influence. It can also really disorient people who kind of like that they were susceptible to influence, namely the people who like to influence. And they may feel almost a little bit betrayed when they realize that actually the INFJ was following their own path the whole time. Now, the reason for all this, as you may already have anticipated, has a lot to do with FE. But not just with FE, with auxiliary FE. And not just with auxiliary FE, but with the fact that this auxiliary FE is auxiliary to, subservient to, subaltern to NI. Perhaps the most idiosyncratic function that has to do a lot with the particular unconscious of that particular person. It is the function that regulates. It does not provide all the content of the unconscious of the NI dominant, of course, but it always regulates the unconscious of that particular NI dominant. And insofar as it regulates that unconscious, it is still in interaction, constant interaction with the particular unconscious of that person with this particular texture and a heavily individual components, even though we know that there are also collective components to that unconscious. So NI is always in the driver's seat at the end of the day. It's true that it's kind of repressed for compliant INFJs, but never completely repressed. So even the most compliant of INFJs are ultimately following their own path and deriving a kind of secondary benefit from their compliance. That is not easy to understand when you're not an INFJ and when you're not an INFJ who's thought a lot about INFJs. But then even the INFJs that are not compliant are still often going to espouse a position where they will seem quite polite with other people and will tell people, yeah, what you're saying is very interesting, and appear sometimes to be so interested in what the other person is saying as to look like they're swayed by it, like possibly they're embracing it, even if they're not. It's just their mode of communication. Their mode of communication is usually quite polite, soft, a little formal sometimes, but often very agreeable. It's not that common to encounter a disagreeable INFJ, just in the same way that it's not that common to encounter a disagreeable ENFJ. But the difference again is that ENFJs don't have dominant NI. The NI of the ENFJ is subservient to their FE. The NI of the INFJ is subservient to no one. So the INFJ follows their NI, sometimes in a very fluid manner, kind of like secure style or spiritualized style. You might say even spinner style. Sometimes not fluidly, in the case of the solipsist, who's NITI, and always in a relationship of rebellion against the external world, which also indicates their dependence on it, or compliance style, which is openly looking like they're interjecting the values of the outer group and wanting to align with the outer group. Even that compliant INFJ, I mean, the reason why the INFJ is self-tortured, the reason why the INFJ tends toward neurosis is because there's psychic conflict, otherwise there's no neurosis. But if there's psychic conflict, that precisely means that the outward and outer appearance of wanting to align with the group is really conflicting with the idiosyncratic proclivities of their dominant NI, and ultimately they never abandon the dominant NI. NI is their womb. NI is their origin. They're not gonna part ways with their mother, especially boys. Only kidding. So, of course, the INFJ is going to look often like they are susceptible to influence. But in fact, and it may sound almost a little perverse, but that's their way of ensuring that they're not influenced. They're letting you talk. They're letting you think like they're engaging a lot with what you're saying. And that's the case. But often there is a kind of a detachment involved that you may not see. Let me know in the comments what you thought, guys. Don't forget that I've written a book called The Ecstatic Soul on the mind of the INFJ, a new look at the INFJ personality, particularly INFJ consciousness. If you want to know more, check the link below if you want to get the book. It's helped a lot of people, and so has my latest book, The Infinite Soul, INFJ Life in the Modern World, which says it all. Hopefully you'll like it. Most people, almost everyone has, as per the reviews on Amazon. Check the link below, the first one to The Infinite Soul, and don't forget that your kind support via my Patreon page, which is also linked below, is always deeply appreciated. I could not do it without you. It's through your help that I can continue producing video content every day. So please consider supporting me there for a small amount every month. You also get access to bonus content every 2-3 weeks on a topic of your choosing, and video deep dive by myself, and access to our special Discord server. Hopefully see you there. Bye bye, guys.